asked about starting recording, as Marie-Helene know, from La Guilde of Montreal, our partner in presenting Cheryl Wilson Smith today. It's been a real pleasure working with Marie-Helene, both on this presentation and the earlier presentation of Susan Edgerly. And I hope maybe we'll do another one in the spring. You never can tell, but we really appreciate the help and cooperation of Marie-Helene. And I want to welcome all of Cheryl's guests. Normally we rattle off the names, but Cheryl has her own fan club, so too many guests. So welcome to all of Cheryl's guests. And if any of you are interested in knowing more about Arizona Glass Alliance, we have a website, which is www.azglassalliance.org. And we also have a Facebook page that is maintained very well by our member Felice Appel, who I see on there, and thank you very much, Felice. Upcoming events, I want you to know about on November 18 at 7 o'clock Arizona time, we will be hosting a presentation by Charles Shepard. Charles is the director of the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. He has led the growth of that museum, and in particular, he's led the expansion of the museum into art made from glass as one of their primary focuses. It's not the only focus, but it's one of their primary focus. And it's been a real interesting journey for both Charles and the museum. And I'm sure you will enjoy that presentation. If you haven't responded yet, please do. It's November 18 at 7 o'clock. I'll be sending out an announcement in the next few days for our December presentation, which will be very interesting. It will be on December 14th, the evening of December 14th. We will be doing this presentation in cooperation with the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and we will be presenting Sharif Bey. Sharif is a very, very interesting artist who works in ceramics and other materials, sometimes including glass. He does both sculptural pieces as well as oversized wall hanging jewelry pieces. He's won all kinds of awards, and his work is in all kinds of museums. I think you'll want to sign up for it. It will be a very interesting presentation. And we're working on really good stuff for presentations after the first of the year, so stay tuned for those. It is time for dues for the year. Many of you have paid already. If you haven't paid our dues, we've held them the same as prior years, $35 for a single and $50 for a couple. We prefer checks, but we have put in a provision where you can pay over our website using PayPal. We prefer checks because it costs us 3% for PayPal, but either way works fine. For those of you who haven't worked with Zoom before, you have two choices. You can either use speaker view or gallery view. I highly recommend you pick speaker view. That way, whoever is the speaker and the slides will show up on most of your screen rather than a bunch of little boxes. That's all I've got in the way of announcements. I'd like to now introduce Marie-Helene No from La Guilde to tell you a little bit about La Guilde and also to introduce our speaker, Marie-Helene.
Thank you so much, Fred. And thank you for the Alliance for welcoming us and Cheryl Wilson Smith today. We feel very, very blessed and lucky. So I am the Cultural Activities Coordinator at La Guilde. La Guilde is a nonprofit organization that aims to preserve, promote, and increase awareness for Inuit art, First Nation art, and fine craft from Canada. La Guilde was founded in 1906 by two women from the English community of Montreal, so Alice Peck and May Phillips. In 1949, La Guilde was the first organization to start the Inuit art market, and Inuit art is a major part of our permanent collection at La Guilde. Our collection of Inuit art is also one of the most influential in Canada. So La Guilde has a center of documentation as well as archives available for consultation. And we organize temporary exhibitions and cultural activities in relation to our programming. So amongst our exhibition, the Gallery of La Guilde has organized Light on Glass, an exhibition that will be presented until November 22. This exhibition presents the amazing work of 17 contemporary glass artists from Canada. To present the exhibition, Laguille created a beautiful virtual guided tour, which Fred has already shared with you. But if you would like to receive it, please contact us by email. You will find more information in the chat. You may also know more about the artists who participate in the exhibition, as well as see all the sculptures that are available for acquisition by consulting our website, laguille.com. That is also in the chat. Light on Glass underlines the importance of the dialogue between light and the medium of glass, as well as the depth of the technical knowledge possessed by the artist. Among the artists in the exhibition, there is, of course, Cheryl Wilson Smith, who will present her amazing work shortly. You may also have assisted to the presentation of Suzanne Edgerly, who presented a conference for your alliance not long ago. And Laguille is organizing a virtual demonstration of cold working glass with artist Marie Chartrand on November 14 at 11 a.m. your time zone. So it will be free and open to all. If you'd like to or interested to participate, you may register on Facebook in the link that will in the chat again. And now I'm glad to introduce you to the great artist, Cheryl Wilson Smith. I'd like to tell also that during her presentation, if you would like to know more about the artworks that she will present, some are also for acquisition. And so if you have questions about the size or you'd like to know more about them, please write your question in the chat below. So I am surrounded by her amazing work. And Cheryl Wilson Smith has lived all her life in Canada's north, working and raising her family in Red Lake. Beginning as a painter and ceramic artist, she works in glass art, exploring the passage of time and her sense of place in the vast world around us. Drawing from her isolated life, residencies around the world, and travel, she has created a unique image. Like most Canadians, she deals with landscape, but landscapes remembered across generations, those affecting us and those we impact. Cheryl is interested in remembrance that shape an individual's art and design ideas. Her sculptures serve as receptacles for memory and time, while exploring the tensions presented as we try to walk responsibly in this world and contemplate the extent to which we all alter the landscape for better and worse. So Cheryl, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Maria-Hélène. And thank you all for being here. I'm really grateful. Thank you to Fred and Sharon Schomer for hosting the Arizona Glass Alliance and La Guilde. Maria-Hélène and the staff are working really hard during this time for all their artists, and we really appreciate it. I'm in my studio here in Red Lake, where the internet is not always the greatest. So Maria-Hélène and I are working together to bring this talk to you. So if we could start.
Definitely.
Thank
I will
you.
be sharing the screen with your PowerPoint.
Thanks so much. So I'm an artist who sculpts with glass frit. In this talk, I will start with the germination of my inspiration, then explain my process, and show you events that I'm proud to have participated in. And then I'll show you my latest work. Sorry, indulge me, if you don't mind, for a moment. Close your eyes, slowly breathe in. I'd like a big breath passing through your nostrils and filling your lungs. Really try and feel it. I think we need it today. And then breathe out. That one breath is over and can never come back. Oh, open your eyes. Sorry, forgot that part. Every breath, everything in our life is passing. But I think with COVID, many of us are more aware of that than ever. I currently live in Red Lake, where I'm constantly reminded of our transience. Embracing that has allowed me to examine it through my work. Next one. An amazing friend and mentor of mine likes to say, our work is a reflection of self. That thought is really scary for me. To expose my soul to the public is not a comfortable situation to be in. I live surrounded by the manifestations of nature, relatively untouched by humans. Next slide. The rocks and trees and lakes around me are a daily reminder that I am only passing through. Those trees were here long before me and will be here long after. I strive to reflect nature's graceful strength in my work. Through this work, I contemplate our connections to nature, genetic memory, and the evanescence of life. Next. At the same time, I'm aware of what can't be seen. The image is a tailings pond from our local gold mine. I drive past the lake and the pond daily. I am aware of the impact of both on my art. Next slide. So back to my inspiration. My feeling of transience is partially due to where I live. I live at the end of the highway, in the midst of the boreal forest in Canada, a place of great fishing and hunting and gold mines. I'm 10 hours straight north of Minneapolis. To go further north from here, you must fly or portage. Next slide. I've lived in Northern Ontario for most of my life, and the impressions of rocks, lakes, and snow have been inscribed on my soul. Next. I'm inspired at every turn by our surroundings. Next. For example, the granite rock that displays the tenacious survival of lichen. Next. The wilderness was my childhood sanctuary, always an escape and an adventure. Next. It's about the tiniest lichen living their quiet and solitary life. Next. It's about the even more secretive lives that no one ever sees, hidden under decaying logs. Next. It's about being on the water and seeing the richness that surrounds me. All of this nurtures my creative process. Next. The good part of living here is the beauty and the seclusion. Next. But the difficult part of living here is the isolation. Next. But the ice roads that we get to travel on in the winter make for great storytelling. Next. And endless. Next. Inspiration. I believe the intensity of our winters and the completeness of isolation, next slide, gives us a sense of survival and resilience. Although I believe our current situation will give all of us a sense of resilience. Next. I can't deny that it's often frustrating and challenging to be in a small community. The benefits of isolation are substantial for me as an artist. Next. The quiet ease, being truly alone, spending time in solitude, being forced to be with myself is deeply valuable. Next. Another profound influence on me is that I was always involved in aviation. I became a pilot at the age of 21. I love to fly and still marvel today at the possibilities of flight and the magnificent inventions we as humans have created. Flying has given me a macroscopic view of the land. It, added to my daily microscopic view, gives me geographical context to the passage of time. I am aware at the same time that many of these inventions are a contradiction. These beautiful little spheres, worthy of any artist, are part of a guided missile. Next. The roots of my art are in my past. This is my grandma's needlework that hangs in my house. Both my mom and my grandma did needlework. Here's a quilt my grandma did in 1939 that hangs in my hallway. It's a yo-yo quilt. Each of these circles is about the size of a 50-cent piece. It's stitched by hand, made for a queen-size bed. It represents hours and hours of her life and connects me to an interesting time in world history and my personal history. Next. My dad always welded and carved. Sorry, that was the yo-yo quilt. The next one is one of my dad's carvings. My dad welded and carved and seemed to always make whatever we needed. So much of my upbringing was shared of work done by hand. Next. The passage of time is constant, like the layers in my work. These two young men, my sons, have manifested for me the passage of time. Next. You really get a sense of time watching children grow at what seems like lightning speed, sharing the traditions of family and stories of ancestors with them. Next. Helping them prepare for their future, it really makes you aware of such a small part of history. Next. Glass is the perfect medium to explore this thought of passage of time, as its own rich traditions have been handed down through generations. It takes a great deal of time to master its fragility and strength. Next. It resounds with insignificance. At one moment, a strong, vibrant object, the next shattered and discarded. Next. One of the benefits of this isolation is that I have sought connections from around the globe. Next. With like-minded people and thinkers who have become my community. Technology has allowed me to reach out and connect on my own terms. Next, I'm always amazed at the helping hands I receive when I ask. Next, I could not have done it without the generosity of artists who have lifted me up when I was struggling. I hope we can all be as generous when we're asked. Next, knowing what glass artists are achieving around the world has raised the bar for me on what is possible. It's helped me to grow as an artist and become part of the larger community. Next, allowing me to constantly study glass and network nationally and internationally. And now with COVID, many opportunities like this one today have been moved online. So the possibilities now feel almost endless. Next. So I always painted. This is one of my early efforts. Next. And here's another. A recent teacher put my painting ability in perspective when he told me that the good news is I had unlimited potential for improvement. Next. Then I began in clay. The landscape made me want to create in 3D. Fortunately, there was a lady in Red Lake who taught clay classes. I think all artists' lives are a unique combination of design and accident. Next. Clay led me to be included in my first art show. Better than my paintings, right? After several years working in clay, I got a kiln and began my lifelong study of how to fire things. Next. I was never completely happy working in clay, so I discovered glass through an Australian ceramics magazine I used to find in our local drugstore. Random serendipity again. I began by simply slumping glass. I made plates and bowls. This castling my son found on the beach one year. It was about 30 inches long. I coated it in smooth-on silicone. My husband always had the fun job of unmolding these after they sat in the sun for about 24 hours. I did birds, fish, snakes. My freezer is a place of terror for small children. Next. This is one of my favorites, Gentleman's Agreement in cast glass. It's the beginning of narrative work for me. Next. In the early years of my glass casting, my children were the subjects of my main learning experiments. They always threatened me with calling Child and Family Services. Here, for example, the mold stuck to the hair on his arms and legs. But I persevered. My body castings landed me my first solo show at Definitely Superior Artist Run Gallery in Thunder Bay, about 7 hours east of here, Northern Ontario. Next. Then in 2006 in Dryden, a town just south of me by 2.5 hours, they had a call for artists to apply to create art for their training center. I was so naive, I applied, and I was awarded the Plum Atrium space. I had no idea what I was getting into. Next. Each of the pods is clay, about 2.5 feet high. I had 3 months to make over 100 pieces and 5 of these pods. Each of the 100 pieces were 18 by 18 inches and 6 millimeters of glass. So I worked literally night and day. I'd load the kiln every 8 hours. Most nights this required me coming into the studio at 2 and 3 in the morning. This, of course, was during one of our notorious -40 winter spells. Even though my studio is only a 10-minute drive, it was not pleasant. Next. But working that intensely helped me build skill and confidence. Next. This is from 2009. I was given a job at our local heritage center. It's a donor wall that's completely made out of hand-painted ceramic tiles. It took me 2 years. It's 11 by 21 feet, and it was one of my biggest learning experiences. Next. In 2014, I was confident enough or crazy enough to bid on a restaurant job in Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's in central Canada. Next. This is from Carnival Restaurant. Yes, I got the job, and it taught me a very important lesson, that I'm not cut out for this kind of work. I'm obviously a really slow learner. Next. I was a mess the whole time we were installing for various reasons. I also carried each one of these glass ribbons that are 4 feet long, down a block and a half in -40 again with blowing wind, down slippery streets of Winnipeg. There were over 200 pieces. Next. But I never stopped exploring landscape, time, and layering. As I've already alluded, I believe you must be an independent spirit. Next, to live your life as an artist in a remote type of community and take the occasional risk in order to move forward. Next. One of my biggest risks was taking a mentorship 6 years ago that was offered through Fusion Clay and Glass in Southern Ontario. Next. The mentor was the amazing Koen van der Stuken, a Belgian glass artist who is now the head of glass at Sheridan College. Next. Who I'm extremely and forever grateful. You may recognize some of his work. He was at SOFA for many years. Next. This mentorship allowed me to connect with an amazing group of Canadian artists and introduced me to a whole new world. Next. Koen's questioning, encouragement, and his belief in me propelled my work forward at an accelerated pace. Next. Through his encouragement, I applied for a residency, and in 2014, I was able to attend a glass residency with Professor Mark Ganter at University of Washington in order to explore direct 3D printing in glass, or vitroglyphic printing, a process they have pioneered. I needed to examine how the automated 3D printing process relates to my own manual process. So after nagging him to death, something I'm very good at, just ask my husband, Mark Ganter eventually relented. Next. For this residency, I needed to learn the computer design program called Rhino. This is how I used to design. Next. Rhino, the scaling of objects, rotating, and visualization became much easier. Next. It was thought-provoking for me to be able to create a glass object. Next, that my hands never touched. Next, I simply designed the object on the computer and then I pushed print. Next. And this is what I end up with. This caused me to take some time to contemplate the nature of my process. Next. And how the act of just doing becomes an embedded part of both my vision and the emotional content of my work. It allows me to reconnect with the viewer on a deeper level. The exploration of 3D printing allowed me to see the possibilities, encouraged me to continue the process of handmade as it reconnected me to my past. I believe there is something invaluable in work made by hand. Next. So this is how I look when I'm in my studio. Really attractive. It is very dusty. Next. And if you want to get the video ready, Maria and Ned, appreciate it. So to create my sculptures, I pass frit through screens, much like silk screens that we make t-shirts with. I build them layer by layer, much like manual 3D printing process. And then I fire the layers of frit as a hole in the kiln to build a solid sculpture. These sculptures are fired at a center that varies from kiln to kiln and sculpture to sculpture. If you want to go ahead and play that video, I'd appreciate it. This is the first time I'm actually showing my process to anybody, so bear with me. It's in a video that I did. So I place the silk screen down with the positive image in the screen. I sprinkle frit through the image. I usually use more than one color. I find one color just a little bit boring. So I think I have two different reds here and an orange. Then I make sure the frit has gone through the image. And there we go, we have a layer. So I then put the negative screen down. I have to line it up to make sure it covers what I've just placed with the frit. And then I sprinkle, I use kaolin. There's a lot of stuff you can use. Kaolin's my choice. And then I have, hopefully, a completed layer. So I continue to do that till I get to the high I want. Some of my sculptures are quite large, so it takes me a little bit of time, but I really do enjoy this process. So people have said this work is pattern, and that's debatable. I don't use a liquid binder in my glass. I only pass it through the screens. There's pounding or pressing into the mold. So we'll just wait for Maria Len to get the video back up. I then take all these layers of powder and put them in a kiln. Next slide. If I fall in the way, the sculpture will be wrecked. There's no givens at this point. Uncovering each of my sculptures after firing is akin to an archaeological dig. This is what it looks like coming out of the kiln. Next. So I relinquish my work. Next. And hope the kiln does its magic as required. So you can see why everything is quite dusty. Next. And next. I currently have 4 kilns, which run almost continuously. My largest kiln is 6 feet by 30 inches. Next. For my birthday many years ago, many years ago, my husband took me to Venice, where I was able to take some classes from some glass maestros. I was in awe, and ever since then, I've wanted to make more than flat objects. I also know a blowing studio here where I live, for me, was impractical. So when I was able to work 3-dimensionally in this way, it was a breakthrough moment for me. I had found my joy. I moved from glass casting into sculpting with frit, enjoying the meditative Zen space I enter when I'm creating. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. The space where time ceases to exist. And I love the freedom and spontaneity I can achieve in this type of work. And I'm motivated to keep going, because when I get it right, it resonates physically with my heart and my soul. Next. Here's my studio. It's a matrix of visual inspiration for me. The ideas are scattered everywhere. I'm fortunate to have the basement of an old dance hall. We call it the Polish Alliance of Canada. They're the people that built this hall and they used to own it. It's here in Red Lake. It's a judgment-free space that allows me to create, fail, and attempt again. Next. And the colors of glass I use as a painter would paints you just saw in the video. You can also see them behind me a little bit here in my studio. Next. In 2014, I was invited to a Pilchuck residency with Steve and Richard Parrish. I'm sure you all know them and Pilchuck. Next. This residency was my first experience being in a large group of like-minded people, all working in glass. Many of these artists I believe you already know. It's inspiring to be among artists who genuinely like you and your work. Next. And then I was able to attend a midwinter residency with Steve and Richard and 13 other glass artists in Norway. Next. Most of our time was spent in Berlevåg. By the side of the house, you can see 2 reindeer. They actually roam free up there. Next. We were north of the Arctic Circle. They thought it was cold here. The average day was -15, virtually balmy. The wind, however, was incredible. This photo was taken on the day we were leaving. They have gate arms that come down across the highway and close it, and then they have regular scheduled times of departure so that we could travel in a convoy behind a snowplow to the closest town, which was 3 hours south. It's really not a bad idea. Next. It was beautiful and isolated, just like home. Next. This residency again. Next. Furthered my work and shifted my perspective. Next. I now look at where I live a little differently. I realize that all the rich details of the landscape in Norway surround me in Red Lake. As well, I now try and make a conscious effort to take the time to notice them. Next. In 2016, I was able to go to Scotland to Northlands Glass with Richard and Steve again. This was funded in part by the Ontario Arts Council. Next. I was able to search for my ancestors and explore memory. Next. And Maria Len, if you want to get the next video ready, I'll talk about this gentleman. That gentleman there, okay, sorry. We were all invited to a harvest festival, the whole group of us. It was a community festival. We had this fabulous home-cooked dinner. And this gentleman was the farmer picked to share his story with the community. He could name every one of the tractors he had owned in his life. I was again enthralled with the tradition of sharing your story with the community. If you want to play the video, that would be great. The gentleman on the accordion and the dancing made me long for the past, but realizing the past is alive and thriving in this part of Scotland. As the film makes clear, the Harvest Festival became a dance, which I didn't know going there. I had no idea that was going to happen. So if you just want to go to the next slide, Maria Len. I have never seen people dance like that. I've not seen anything close since the high school gym. They played songs that everyone knew all the steps to. Canadian barn dance and strip the willow were two of the most popular. This demonstrated this culture's ability to pass on traditions. This young blonde woman, I believe most of you know, she's glass artist Carlin Sutherland from Leibster. She knew all the steps to all the dances, just like the 80-year-olds did. This was such an opportunity to explore community memory. Next. So before I left for Scotland, my husband bought me a brief ancestry inquiry into my great-grandmother's side of the family. I read it before I left, but did not realize where all the towns were until we were driving through them. Yes, my Scotland geography sucks. Next. Many people have asked me why I do the work I do. I have all kinds of answers, all of which I believed. I knew my family was from near Northland's Glass Studio in Leibster. For those of you familiar with the area, they lived in Thurso and Lather and Wheel, as well as many other places in Scotland. With the help of the amazing Lorna at Northlands, I found where my great-great-grandmother lived, in this house, only 15 minutes from the glass studio where I was working. Next. And I discovered rock formations that I have never seen before. Next. Which looks surprisingly like my work. Next. I have always wondered where my work comes from, and the residency connected me to my artistic DNA. This trip didn't answer all of my questions, but it feels like it brought me full circle. Next. From realizing where my ideas may come from and watching how a society continues to pour stories and traditions into living memory, like the layering in my work, we're always in the midst of the passage of time. Next. I'm grateful that the Ontario Arts Council and the Chalmers Family Fund have awarded me a Chalmers Fellowship to continue to explore genetic memory and my relationship to the past. The research will continue once we are able to travel again freely. Next. Speaking of traveling freely, I'm fortunate to be a snowbird. We have a small home in the Florida Keys, and I am more aware of the benefits and detriments that come with that title. Next. Recently, an amazing gallerist asked me what effect Florida has on my work. I was stuck for an answer. So after months of consideration, I've realized this place has taught me more than I could ever have hoped to learn. I adore nature, though I have a healthy respect for it. Growing up with bears is way different than growing up with scorpions and poisonous snakes. I get to be with trees growing in the wild that reach for the sky I've only seen in small pots inside other people's homes. I realize no matter where we live, we all need to connect to nature. Being in nature has been proven to calm us, something we can all use. And I'm trying to create that connection through my work. Next. I have realized being here in the Florida Keys has taught me the value of being part of an artist community. I was fortunate to be embraced by the Studios of Key West, which is an amazing organization if any of you ever get a chance to go there. Community has been so helpful to my individual growth as an artist. This place is a place where nationality becomes secondary, but your art and soul are of the utmost importance. Florida and the arts community allow me to be invigorated and immersed in the arts, to recharge before returning home to my solitude. Next. But these guys, I'll wait for the slide. These guys, I cannot get used to. I was trimming the bougainvilleas and happened across them. It was not pretty. I did the ugly scream, and I think I fell backwards off my small little trimming stool. It was not cool. They still scare the crap out of me. Next. So this is where I got the call from Le Guild in Montreal that they would be having a show this fall. I was super excited and probably way overstimulated by all the things I had seen. Next. So now some of the events I've been fortunate enough to participate in. This is one of the first pieces that I made in this layered style of work. It was selected for a show in 2011 at the Ball Museum of Glass in Muncie, Indiana, with the juror, Catherine Gray. I'm sure you're familiar with her amazing work, like the piece Forest Glass at the Corning Museum of Glass. She's also the host of that Netflix series, Blown Away. When people around me in Red Lake were seriously thinking I was crazy, she believed enough to include my work in the show and changed my world. Next. In 2014, I was lucky enough to win the RBC Award for Glass. It's the National Award for Canadian Glass Artists, and I was fortunate to win. The artists I was up against were generous, outstanding artists, so I was truly humbled. Next. I was a finalist with honorable mention in the International Side Glass Emerge competition in 2014 and 2016. Next. This is my entry for Emerge 2016, where I was a finalist. Promises and Lies, Keeping Score. The stacks of glass-like paper were reminiscent of those nails we used to have in restaurants when I was a kid. You used to pay your bill, the diner, and they put the receipt on the nail. The receipts accumulated, just like the promises and lies. Obviously, a bit of growth and realization period in my life. Next. Here's Promises and Lies, Keeping Score at the Bellevue Arts Museum next to the amazing Jeffrey Stenbaum's work. Next, as an artist, I was thrilled to be invited to participate in SOFA in Chicago in 2015 and 2016. SOFA was on my bucket list as an artist. Next. This was at a show in Atlanta at the Marietta Cobb Museum. Part of the group show with those amazing artists I met at Pilchuck. This is Promises and Lies Rubicon. Next. 4 years ago, I was asked by the Thunder Bay Art Gallery, which is a gallery 7 hours away from me, to do a show, and they generously set no restrictions on me. I spent 2 years creating an interactive glass installation called 21 Pillows. It contains over 10,000 handmade glass rocks. 2 years seems like a long time when you're making the same object over and over again. But making repeatedly again allowed me to get in some deep learning. Next. This project had a long incubation time. I was influenced by the 20+ years I've spent in Red Lake observing environmental practices. This photo is just north of Aberdeen in Scotland when I was on that residency. It was my epiphany moment. I was contemplating the contradiction between those oil rigs and the farmland. And it slowly dawned on me, there is no contradiction. We all have a part in altering the land. Next. The installation allowed me to explore this area north of Red Lake. It's always been fascinating to me. A moraine left during the last ice age. Next. I can never resist holding and touching these rocks. I believe a rock has memory and it holds energy. And I love it when people want to tentatively, gently touch my artwork. So I wanted to combine those experiences and share that with everyone. Next. So if you want to get the video ready again, we'll just. So the pillows for me are a reference to the landscape. They themselves remind me of the pillows on my grandma's couch, those beautiful tufted pillows. But like the land, they accept us, our decisions, comfort us, and sustain us. So if you, yeah. So the point of this installation that is now traveling throughout Ontario is that people get a chance to hold, move, and create a landscape through the sharing of collective energy. In doing this, I hope we can all realize the impact we have on the land. So we're now at my current artwork. These are the ideas I proposed to Marie-Hélène at the Guild. I had been thinking about making these vases for about 2 years. That's how long it takes me to actually do something. It takes me quite a while to figure out how. So I sent her these drawings. Next. And then the sketch was translated to this. Although I use Rhino for 3D design, I still enjoy drawing and calculating by hand. Next, which resulted in these, Seeking Ocean Memories. Next. And this one, which is Seeking Warmth. Next one. So this was another one of the drawings that I sent her. Next. That became this. Next. This is Flourish One. It's 28 inches high by 16 inches wide, and it weighs about 50 pounds. Next. Flourish Two. Next. And next. This piece I proposed, I was going to fold individual pieces of layered glass. For this one, I wanted to use recycled glass. Next. This is the result. I fired them together in the kiln to create this piece called Happiness. Next. And this one I just recently made. Next. Red Brook. This piece is like the rocks in my installation. It has another small layered piece inside, and it tinkles as you move it. Next. These two pieces, part of the Stoic series you see here, I have one of them behind me. It's 54, oh, the biggest one is 54 inches. Okay, sorry. The middle one is 54 inches tall and 8 inches wide. The smallest that's behind me is 29 inches tall. And my largest is 5 feet, 6 inches. Next. Ocean Air, I also have here with me. It's 7 inches high by 10 inches wide by 10 deep. Next. And Fire Eric, which is the same size approximately as Ocean Eric. If you're interested in any of my work, you can contact me through my website or talk to Marie-Hélène. I'm going to grab some of these pieces and show you a close-up. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. So can you guys see? Yeah. This is the Fire Eric piece. Beautiful. You get an idea. Wow. And then I'll get the little red ball. And if anybody wants to see anything in particular, just let me know. Oh, that's the piece. Yeah. What? Is that it? Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh. Well, they're pretty fun. They're different.
No, that's the one. That's the red book. Oh, it's beautiful. That blue one's pretty too.
That's it.
Well, on behalf of all of us that have had the pleasure of your presentation, let me tell you that it was beautiful and fascinating. And those are the words that just leaped to mind. Beautiful, beautiful presentation and utterly fascinating. If people have questions, please, if everybody doesn't do it at once, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question, or you can type it in the chat and I will be happy to ask the question for you. Or if not, Marie-Hélène, if you had some questions prepared for our speakers, that would be great as well.
Yeah, I always do. My question, Well, I can wait a little bit, but if you're, you know, willing to answer my question, I actually, I wonder about your piece Flourish, because it's like a spinning, you know. So I want to know, is wind involved in the inspiration? Because we have not had this piece in the exhibition, and I want to know more about it. I want to know where this spiral come from. Is it from the, you know, the beautiful hay that we've seen in the photo, or is it another inspiration? What is it?
For me, it's the wind pattern when you watch the hurricanes actually in Florida. Because you know, the weather pattern in Florida is way different than the weather pattern in Canada. Ours moves from west to east, and theirs usually comes off the tip of Africa up to Florida. And they show those hurricanes as those cycling things that just always amaze me.
So basically, you were inspired by Florida for this one in particular.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. It's good. You were in Florida when you said that you would do the show, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
And please, can you tell me a little bit about happiness? A little bit more about why the folded and the recycled also glass base on this one.
So part of me doing the 21 Pillows installation made me realize that I also am contributing to the detriment of the environment. Glass is a pretty not cool process sometimes. And although I can't calculate exactly what I do or how much I hurt the environment, I started to think about what else I could do or use. So I began using recycled glass. And I love the stuff that's behind you, the beautiful turquoise color it has. It's got a really nice glow. This is actually glass. It's from the States, and they use it in the roads to put on the, like at a stop sign on the paint marks, so that when your lights hit it, it glows. Anyway, I really like this glass, and I would just like to learn to work with recycled more, so it's a direction I'm moving in.
We've had a couple of comments through the chat. First, a couple of congratulations and thank yous for a wonderful presentation. And also a question, someone who really thanks you for your interesting and inspiring talk and was wondering about the wind and breath in your work, wind and breathe in your work.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. Can you say that again to me, Fred? Wind and breath?
Wind and breath, or wind and breathe, I'm not sure which, but that's
okay.
The gist of the question is about the wind and breathe in your work.
I think I start the presentation with breathe because I feel like we need to be centered, and maybe especially today, it's nice to all together in the same space. But I do feel like breath is really important, and I think it's one of those things we all take for granted. But the wind, it just wears everything away over time. And that's the layers in the work are just worn over time. It's again, the layering and just passage of it. I really like wind, but I also find it one of those disturbing things. So that's.
Yeah, I'd like to thank that questioner because that was a really interesting answer.
Thanks.
Any more questions anybody has? Okay, well, again, thank you so much for an absolutely marvelous presentation. It was.
Thank you all.
We could all see that you put in a lot of time and effort to put this together.